We all come at these topics with our own frames of reference, right? So I've been at a university for 23 years. I do have a life outside of it that I'll mention in a minute, but as you hear what I have to say and the conclusions I draw and the accusations I make and the rants I rant, remember where I'm coming from. And I know that some of you are on the other side. You're, come from the vendor and the VAR and, those worlds. But, walk a mile in my shoes as we do this. I also have a pretty active writing career. I've been fortunate to be doing this professionally since roughly 2000. That's where you can find me, a bunch of different places on the internet. I'm pretty easy to find. On Twitter, I'm at WiredNot. And this is our topic, real-world frustrations with consumer gadgets on the business wireless network. The university is a business. It's got a lot of niches and nooks and crannies, but at the end of the day, it's a business. I'm going to expand the topic a little bit and go beyond just the consumer gadgets that you might be thinking about, because there's also an entire realm of oddball devices that are made to be sold into business networks, but the people making them and selling them don't really, as far as I can tell, they don't really understand or don't really care about the environments that they're selling these things into. So yes, it's consumer, but it's also consumer feeling devices. So where am I coming from? My network has about 4,500 APs, about 30,000 wireless clients on a busy day. That's just on the main networks. They have lots of branches and they're their own story. The problem statement there in red, and it's highlighted in yellow if you can't see it in the back, we're all about stability first. Absolutely, those 30,000 people just want a network that works, or those 30,000 devices just want a network that works. And we're going to talk about devices that work against that stability. That stability is arrived at by constructing your wireless networks a certain way, and these devices kind of challenge that. So, in my mind, please don't anybody tell Sebastian Junger that I've done this to his book cover. It's a really weird time, at least to me, in wireless, right? We're all about, depending on the conversation, security, and all week we've heard about, how do you get great performance and, the standards that may or may not bring anything that's standardized, but, we kind of come at it from this quest for perfection on the left, and then on the right, you've got them, the device makers and vendors. And they do all kinds of weird proprietary stuff, and they don't really seem to have any interest in fitting into these business networks. Right? The fundamental problems, there's many which you can read, and I don't want to be the guy that just reads slides, but I do want to highlight a few of them, and those are the ones that are circled. The classic dilemma of ease of use being at odds with security, right? We've got that going on here. The network topologies that we use at the university and in big businesses are not the same topologies we use in our living room. You got this condition where a lot of devices require everything to be on the same subnet. That just doesn't work in the business environment. And then these just absolutely, and I'll talk about these a little bit more in a minute, the absolutely stupid device initial setups. Right? And then everything else on the list is valid. I just kind of want to highlight some of the ones that really get in my craw. And before we go any further, I do want to point out that I'm well aware that size matters. I'm talking big, complicated networks versus little mom and pop. Everything is easier in the small environments, generally. I think it's safe to say that. But the large networks aren't as flexible, so let's kind of get that out there. Excuse me. And also a quick reminder, 802.11, we're at the bottom 2 layers of the OSI model. A lot of times we're called upon to try to stretch that and do weird things to it to make up for all of the things that are going on up above. All right, there's some tension here, at least in my mind. So let's get into some specifics. The great Randy Quaid there. I'm going to talk about the cousin Eddie of enterprise wireless devices. No offense to our cousin Eddie. The speech bubbles, these are things that the device maker was actually floating in the course of our conversations. Well, can you give these devices, can you give them their own SSID? Can you give each one of them their own SSID? And there's over 100 of them. We have to have abnormally, freakishly high SNR. Gee, we don't see a lot of networks like yours. Can you use a MAC filter? So each one of them connects only to a specific AP. And oh, by the way, that antenna that you're complaining about, we bury it deep inside so nobody messes with it. So what I'm talking about here is this guy. That's what it looks like from the outside. If we drill in, there's a blue arrow pointing to a little tiny stubby USB adapter. That's behind a screen, 2 circuit boards, big metal bracket, bunch of electricity, bunch of electronics. And then down at the bottom, I know it's hard to see, probably in the back, but the circle is where you could plug in a USB adapter on the outside of the case, but that's where people might mess with it. Back to the SNR thing, needing to be, freakishly high. The adapter is buried inside. So the takeaways on this particular device, I spent personally over 65 hours working with their developer and got nowhere. We're talking different languages. They saw the USB slots on that board that they use and said, we can make this wireless. And they just don't understand wireless. We on the IT side were not invited to the discussion before the clocks were purchased, so we were stuck with it. And as I mentioned, the requests that we got from them were just absolutely outlandish. At the same time, what these clocks do, the fact that people swipe, we've got probably a couple thousand hourly employees across campus using these. This is a pretty important device. So we ended up having to put, I think we have probably at least half are now on wired Ethernet. It was just that bad. It was to the point where, can you put an AP right next to the clock? Well, why wouldn't we just wire the damn thing and be done with it? So moving on, and again, I know the fine print thing is kind of a pain, so I'll kind of guide you through it and try to be quick. Company on top is called Big Ass Fans. It's a real company. They make big ass fans, right? And then down below, you've got a lighting control company called Lutron. Over on the right margin, as you look at it, are the company logos. They both kind of do the same thing. Their devices come up as booming access points. They just sit there and they blast away. The big ass fan in this one is on channel 3. The lighting control in the below is on channel 9. It's a party, right? At least with the big ass fans, you can walk up there with the remote and do a little key sequence over Bluetooth and kill it. With Lutron, you cannot kill it until you plug in an active Ethernet connection. That's the only way you can make it go away. I've got some of these that have been blasting for a year. Then we talk with the device manufacturers, and again, they're just in a different place. We only use these loud interfering things for setup. Is that a problem? Well, when setup takes weeks or months, yeah, it's a problem. They just don't seem to get it, right? The consumer stuff that you use at home, you buy some cheap D-Link water sensor or something, it does the same thing. But this isn't a cheap D-Link water sensor from your house. So it just doesn't map well. And as I said, in the case of the big-ass fans, at least they give you some defense against the madness, and the Lutron people just don't. But if you read the Lutron manual, it'll also say, you really don't want to use this product where you have wireless. Who doesn't have wireless? So what do you do? How do you deal with them? You know, we have a policy that says nobody on campus can buy this stuff until they get with us, and us usually is me. It doesn't always work that way. We're a big bureaucracy, and sometimes that sentiment doesn't prevail. Basically, you try to get ahead of it. You know, you evaluate it through the tech manuals and all of that. I've called the vendor. I had to do this twice last week. Hey, can you explain how this works, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to see if you guys are going to be able to work on campus or not. You know, you have those conversations. You end up being the screen and the filter for the people that are interested in using these things if you can get them to play ball. And then I've also actually worked with the vendors who are selling these products to explain what's wrong with how they do it. And I've had some of them fix it. Okay, I see what you're saying. Yeah, we should be able to roll in a new whatever and meet what you're telling us we need to have. That's pretty good, because then they can sell more and it's going to be a better fit and all of that. So there's that stuff. And now let's get back to the actual consumer gear. Right? So I am not bashing Cisco. Again, if you can't see it in the back, this is I'm talking about, to begin with, all the streaming stuff. Some of it works really good on a PSK network or an open network. But then you have the Chromecast, and this is a 36-page configuration guide. Hats off to Cisco for figuring out how to do this on a big enterprise network. But if I need 36 pages of config to get the network to work for a Chromecast, there's something wrong in the world. So how far do you bend the network to accommodate the casty stuff? The stuff that needs MDNS? Your answer is probably going to be different from my answer. We probably have different people we answer to. There's different prevailing philosophies about, oh, we can't say no, and well, sometimes you can. And again, I'll touch on that in a minute. But if you can't see it in the back, MDNS is designed for small networks, right? These things all want MDNS, and they're on these big-ass networks. Big-ass fans, big-ass networks. So, you know, we're all smoky. You know, it's up to us to kind of set our compass on all of this individually or as organizations. And, you know, our tolerances are all going to be probably a little bit different. Again, the fine print, having sat back there, I know you can't see these, but the stuff that's highlighted in red, I've got a Chromecast, I've got a Nanoleaf light panel, a TP-Link power strip, Sarah's room speaker, Google Home, bedroom speaker. These are all devices that we picked up as rogue APs. They're sitting there blasting away. They're on funky channels. And they're not going anywhere because they can't be made to go on our networks. So they're just there until we find a way to remove them, or we just let them be there because we're overwhelmed with the quantity. Visually, what the devices look like, you know, this is just to kind of give you some imagery behind the last page, the things that we're seeing. Has anybody seen that Nanoleaf light panel thing? It's its own bizarre story. We'll talk about these a little bit more in just a second. But again, just to kind of put some visual context to what we're talking about. I love this one. The FERB. I am sure this is in some business network somewhere. There are other connected home cameras aimed at monitoring pets remotely, but the FERBO's ridiculous bit comes from how you can shoot dog treats out of it via your smartphone. It has a two-way radio that ostensibly lets you talk to your pet too, and sends notifications when it senses barking. It's essentially a Nest Cam just for dogs. That wants to be on your wireless network. Why? What have we become? And this is where at least some of you people, are saying, but the vendors got really cool stuff like ClearPass and ICE, and they can do fingerprinting and signatures, and they'll make it all okay. Just get out your checkbook and spend a boatload of money because your network is huge. Okay, it just sucks that it comes to that. Again, from the customer perspective, it's like, are you kidding? And then, by the way, they don't always work. I tried putting in one of these industry-leading, magic in the middle boxes to sort it all out and, make things work the way they're supposed to. The first 6 devices, all individual devices, were fingerprinted or identified, whatever the right terminology is, wrong. The vendor's answer, well, just send us the signatures, and we'll fix it. We'll make it better. It's not sustainable, right? If I tell people that's how we're going to do it, our network is going to feel like crap. It doesn't get on. What's going on? There's a trouble ticket, and now I'm interacting with a vendor on their very expensive magic in the middle, and the whole thing just feels bad. Down at the bottom of the slide, gee, wouldn't it be nice if device makers and wireless LAN vendors got together and standardized some stuff? We've spent a lot of the week hearing about, the standards. They really don't standardize much anymore, says I. And then there's the PSK option, right? We've got all these one-offs. Just do a PSK network. We're huge. It just doesn't work that well when you're huge. And even if you could do it, well, I'll get to that in a minute, because there's also another option, an open wireless LAN. And we ended up doing this for a lot of devices in the dorms. Screw the magic in the middle. Here's an open network. You can go to the internet. Whatever you can get on this network, more power to you. It's all you. We had that blessed by security. We had an answer for all of their questions. Well, what if this happens? What if that happens? And we built it in a way that everybody could live with, and we got it blessed by our CIO. When it works, people love it, but where it does not work is, again, we'll go back to this slide. That Nanoleaf thing on the left, if it sees a 5 gig SSID, it'll complain. It wants a 2.4 gig only SSID. The TP-Link power strip in the upper middle there, it absolutely has to have a PSK network and won't work on an open network. The casting device, the Chromecast, it's got has anybody tried to put one of those on a big network? I mean, I don't want to, it's not fun. You have to do, screw the 36 pages. You have to do some really, really weird stuff, hoping that you get it right, and then maybe make the network do this until it connects. Okay, now go make it do this. It's like, it's just not worth it. The speaker thing, whether it be Sonos, and I know that I'm kind of playing fast and loose with lumping all these together, but Sonos and Alexa and all of these things, they don't show you what their MAC address is on the packaging. That's part of the issue in trying to find them. And they all have their own way of doing things, proprietary. It's just, maddening. And then if you've got a giant PSK network, people can see each other's devices and kind of wreak havoc that way. That's not good. 2.4 gets it the worst, I found, but 5 gets its share. This is just a quote, was taken from the EDUCAUSE listserv, where somebody is struggling with a Xbox controller, and they're seeing interference on channel 153. And it's all these spiky, weird things, and there's a lot of discussion about this. On the bottom, just showing that there's some unknown thing on channel 36. So yes, 2.4 gets the majority of it. 5 gets hit pretty good too. So kind of getting ready to come in for a landing here on this. Where's all this going, right? Is OWE gonna be the answer to some of this? Private PSK, I know Cisco is working on some solution. I've heard whatever their code word is for the PPSK that they're working on. Maybe it'll be great, but I'm sure it'll also be, shall we say, less than inexpensive or more than inexpensive, whatever the right phrasing is. It's gonna cost a freaking arm and a leg and be licensed out the gills to the point where maybe even if it's great, you can't afford it. That's just what Cisco does anymore because they're a software company. I said it. Will we see the collapse of the enterprise wireless network as we know it under the weight of consumer-grade client devices? Okay, that's being really dramatic, I know. At the same time, in higher ed, some days it really feels like that. You can't have it both ways, at least not easily. Collusion. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think a lot of stuff is orchestrated in the background. I don't think everything just happens. A lot of things do. It would not surprise me if the Arubas and the Ciscos of the world are kind of working with the clueless vendors and saying, no, it's all good. We're making ice in ClearPass. You guys don't change anything so that they can sell product. I'm just saying. What's that? There you go. I'll fight you. The Wi-Fi Alliance, they're a marketing company. Yeah, they do good things once in a while. But they're a marketing company. I see them as the natural group that maybe could lead to some kind of harmonizing of this whole mess. I expect nothing out of them. They just don't seem to be interested. And then my very cynical bottom bullet, other than people like me, does anyone really care? Does the industry care? Because it doesn't really feel like it. Yet it's a pretty big problem. So, final analysis. For the foreseeable future, it's going to stay messy, right? Each one of us, again, we have our own dynamics and dimension to our environments and different rules and policy and goals and people we answer to. And some of us have C-levels that are very understanding and you explain, okay, this is why that's not a good fit, and they listen. Others have C-levels that pound the table and say, I don't care, you make it happen, or I find somebody who will, right? I mean, that's the world we live in. So there is no one path through this mess. I've had to do this. There are going to be times where you just hold your nose. You know that you're doing the thing that is not right. You know you're doing the thing that works against the stability above all mantra, and you still have to do it. None of us wants to be the no store. You know, you don't want to pick up the phone. Hey, can I do this? Nope. Can I do this? Nope. You know, that's not fun either. But at the same time, you have to weigh if I make policy exceptions, if I do this super secret MAC thing on the guest network and just let them through without hitting the portal or whatever, is that really good for everybody in the long run? Long run, does it solve a short-term problem but create a longer-term one? Whatever. And sometimes you absolutely just have to say, no, absolutely not. It doesn't fit. We can't do it. Here's why. Hopefully we can help you find another alternative or whatever, but there just is no silver bullet. I do not have an answer to the dilemma I'm presenting to you. And that's all I got.